Hello, everyone. Good afternoon, good morning, and good evening. So, my name is Leonga Mafani Mbesa from Cameroon, and I'm a T4L ambassador. And today we'll be having quite an interesting topic with two amazing ladies, and I feel like the king in the environment. And we'll be having from Colleen, we'll be having Chantal, and the topic today is quite interesting. What I think every striving person has experienced either by just an error in their basics in terms of lives, or maybe just a different kind of boss, or a different scenario, a different environment, different ecosystem. And the topic will be simple: how to speak up without getting being fired from your workplace. And I'm joined today with Colleen. I'm joined today with Chantal, and they are quite going to take a while to introduce themselves. I'll start with Chantal. So, good afternoon, Chantal. Good evening or good morning, where you are.
It would be good evening in South Africa, and as we would say here in Zulu, is Sawubona, which means I see you.
Okay. So, Chantal, tell us a bit about yourself so that the audience could be able to understand and know from which perspective you'll be giving us this topic line.
Beautiful. So, for the last 25 years, I've been an executive career and leadership coach, particularly focused in the area of people's careers, helping companies
Right?
build high performance teams and navigating candidates and talent through every career stage, from graduates all the way through to retirement. I've also built a peak performance framework, which focuses on emotional intelligence, agility mindset, time for optimization, and lastly, the art of communication, which I think is part of today's topic.
Okay. All right, thank you very much. That's amazing. And that gives her quite a balance to talk about this topic because definitely she is either firing people or getting or has gotten herself fired at one point in time or quit from something. And then we also have now Colleen. Now she is more quiet, more subtle, and she's gonna give us a different perspective from a very calm place. So good afternoon, good morning, for Colleen. How are you doing?
Good evening from Botswana. My name's Colleen Tiny Neo Diswai. Pretty much most people call me Tiny and not Colleen, yet it is my official name as well. Um, I've been involved in so many aspects of a career path. I've I've been an executive mostly in the corporate finance, transformation, and corporate governance sphere. And when you talk about transformation, you're talking about issues of measures and acquisitions. And therefore, I've been involved in areas that are very emotive and touching the lives of people on a daily basis. And therefore, walking around and finding your way around that sphere that is very emotive and charged has been pretty much my experience, especially as a leader leading that area of transformation in an organization. So that's what I've been doing.
Amazing. So please, if you're joining us from Facebook, Instagram, LinkedIn, please make sure you indicate your name, where you're joining from, and just tell us. You could ask your questions in the comment section. You could put a tab about something you wanted to talk about while we move ahead. So now, I'll start with a story because this is quite funny. This has been my motivation behind me wanting to be one of the best in my nation. So in 2016, I got this amazing boss. He was from the United States, and he wasn't costumed to being back home like per se because he grew over there. And when he came, he wanted to launch this application. It was something like Facebook, sociocultural more in terms of our it could identify with our own people in Cameroon and in Africa. And he hired me as his head of creative. And it was funny. It was my first time taking up a job of that magnitude because he was a big thing in the nation. And I had just, funny enough, I had just bought a particular computer that was more like my creative computer dream. You know what? A lot of creatives don't say this, but there is this computer you just fall in love with in every generation because the technology companies are always doing a good job moving and upgrade. So this computer was a MacBook, and I really loved it. So we had this electrical issue in the office, and I did bring my computer that day because the day before, a lot of electrical appliances were going on and off, and it caused a lot of issues for the office. So I was safeguarding my baby back home. So I came to the office peacefully, and he called me into his office and said, "What kind of a carpenter comes to his workshop without his hammer?" And he says, "I'll call you back in 10 minutes." And then he walks. I walk out of his office, and then he calls me back into his office. He had a young daughter, and this daughter was very beautiful. And I think I had my eyes on her. I was trying to prove a point as of that time. So I got into the office. I met him. I met his wife. I met this beautiful lady, and boom, they sat me down. This is how it went. You are a very young, nice young man, very educated, very energetic. You bring a good flair to the office. But we cannot have a carpenter who comes to work without his tools. So, henceforth, you're fired. And when he said that, I wasn't in a very good emotional place, I will be honest. I had my wife to be. Then I was looking. Yes, please don't judge me. I was looking at another lady. Of course, we are men, but I was not yet married. So I had my wife to be. Then she was pregnant, and I knew this finance, everything that was coming from this place was able to fund my bills and take care of me. And then I got fired. I remember walking under the rain, and a grown man walking under the rain, going back home, and I was crying. I was crying. I will be honest. I was crying. I wasn't crying because I had lost a job. I was crying because the resources that came from that job were going to sustain something about my livelihood. I was crying because the man made a mockery of everything I stood for. He didn't understand the pain of my baby that I left back home because that computer meant the world to me. As of that time, 2015, yeah, 2015, 2016, I had saved. That's like 10 years ago. That was my life savings I used to buy that computer. I used to worship it. Like I would just put it somewhere and look at it and smile and say, "Oh my goodness." And then he did that. I went back home. I'll be honest. I cursed him. I cursed him. I cursed him. I cursed him under the rain. I cursed him in front of my house. I went to my bathroom. I cursed him. I cried. I cursed him. Oh, I regret. He was one of the brightest lights in my nation. He didn't do finally well in the ecosystem. By 20 by 2018, my firm was doing better than his, and he finally went in. He retired back to the US. But that was my experience, and it did something to me. And I would love us to talk about this for now, because a lot of people don't consider what firing does back to the employee. They do not consider that emotional damage that comes back to the employee. And I was emotionally destroyed that day. I didn't take a cab back home. I literally walked back home under intense rain. I remember a lady saying she just spoke the word that, "Oh my God, look at a nice young man. I've told them not to be smoking these, their things they smoke." So literally she felt like I had smoked something and I had gone off. So I was walking under the rain from that, but I was lost. So Chantal, from your perspective, tell us, what do you think are the emotional implications of firing somebody because of a boss's character flaw? Because after many years, I realized my boss he was not, he didn't believe in my nation, he didn't believe in my people, he didn't believe in our expertise. And then he felt because he came from the United States, he was more of an expert than us, and we're more like slaves to him. So that man cursed us every single day in that office. The worst part of that story is that I worked for him for 6 months, and the stipend I was actually anticipating to have, I never had a franc, not even a dollar, until I was fired.
I think
So
it's long.
imagine that emotional value.
I think the big thing is we cannot change someone else. We cannot expect people to behave the way we want them to. But I think what's part of the topic today is how do I get to speak up for myself? And I think the question comes down to, is there times that we've had that we haven't spoken up, and what to do in those situations that we are able to be able to hang up, bring our voice and bring that across. Um, so yeah, it's more about saying is how do we get to speak up, and when are we sometimes not speaking up?
Yes, I get that. But I want to just ask you, do you think, have you ever thought from, you've led a lot of companies, do you think there's an emotional baggage that comes from firing somebody that when they go back home, they don't just like the company? Whether they speak up or they don't speak up, they don't just like the company, they don't just like the bosses, they don't just like their colleagues. Have you ever been in such a situation?
I think there's a beautiful thing, right? I think it comes down to part of what we're talking about, which is around, let's call it emotional intelligence and resilience, and the meaning. As human beings, we are meaning making creatures. For one person is the reason I may be successful because I was fired. The reason I'm
Okay.
unsuccessful because I was fired. It's what meaning do we attach to these scenarios? And it's about being able to say is how do we have life experience shape us for our betterment and allow us to grow versus wither away? So
Yeah.
it's about saying is how do I take challenging situations and make them part of my success story going forward?
Okay. So, quick question. Now, let me ask, let me turn the tables now to our quiet mom in the house. I like the way she's subtle. How do you speak up? Some bosses are so authoritative and they, they didn't, for example, the case I'm talking about, he didn't give me a platform to talk. He just said that and said, go out, go home. How do you speak up sometimes when you get some narcissistic bosses, I get the place of the employee because the employee sometimes doesn't understand the focus and the mission statement of the organization. And we have to let go those who are not effective. We have to let go those who are not getting the values right. So, how do you approach this? From what standpoint do you go? Do you receive the sack or the firing and then you go out of the office and come back and say, can I say something, sir? Or can I say something, man? Or do you just hit back immediately with your feedback?
I think what is important is that don't back down without speaking for yourself. And when you speak for yourself, you have to be calm yet assertive, calm
Okay.
yet authoritative, and speak up for yourself with facts. Speak up for yourself without being emotional. And while you do it, you have to make sure that you don't lose sight of who you are. You don't lose sight of the message that you need to put across. Yes,
Okay.
it is very um, unnerving to be confronted like that. And I also think that you need to be cognizant of the cultural differences and cultural innuendos that come with interacting with people from different cultural backgrounds. You have
Okay.
somebody whose background says they can tell you, how do you come to work without your tools? What kind of a person are you? And you come from a cultural background that says elders are to be respected, you can talk back to elders, but this is a workplace. You still need to talk for yourself. You still need to be assertive without being rude.
Okay. That's different. You still need to be assertive without being rude. Now, it's a difficult thing to do because emotions, and when you're fired or when you are having challenges in your workplace that are going to lead to maybe you being dismissed, emotions tend to play a key factor in how you respond. And I would throw back this question to you, Chantal. Have you ever been fired?
No, I have not been fired. I have resigned 1.5 times.
Okay. Why? Let the audience get to understand.
Why did I resign?
Yeah, that would be
Say
nice to know.
in one particular, I was again being in the recruitment space is there is official and unofficial reasons why people resign. My
Okay.
official reason was because I went to continue studies in psychometry. The unofficial reason I would say partially was probably a lack of values alignment
Oh, okay.
with the organization, with the leadership. I have a well, I think it's quite a well-known fact that people don't leave companies, they oftentimes leave leaders. And in
Okay.
your particular case is, I believe part of a leader's job is being able to create an environment of psychological safety, of building
Okay.
trust to allow people to speak up. Because I think one of the things that we see in our organizations is two types of leaders. The one is fear and the other is doubt. The screen is coming and going, so just checking that my sound continued throughout. So fear, any idea what fear stands for?
Okay. So,
Fear is false evidence appearing real.
okay.
And oftentimes our fears can stop us from moving forward. It stops us from speaking our truth. It stops us from being able to even speak it, as Colleen said, in a respectful way, because our fears will actually make us feel so out of control, and we might have a bigger emotional reaction to something than we would have been if we were calm and at peace. And the second part is doubt. And I think it comes down to your identity, your mindset, what you value. So often we don't do the inner work of figuring out is, who am I? What do I stand for? What matters to me? And most of all is that I actually matter. I have the right to have a voice. I have the right to disagree. I have the right to be able to stand up for myself and for my colleagues, and also for the betterment of business. Because I think in today's market, I mean, we speak so often about that. I say the world is on fire. Companies are literally in survival mode and have been for more than 5 years. We don't call it a recession. I think it's worse than a recession we've had. And so great leadership, empathic leadership, creating that psychological safety is not something we're seeing every day. And so the work starts with, for you, is saying is, number one is, I got to work on my emotional intelligence. Is, how am I responding to situations? Is, am I able to manage my emotions, being coming across as temperamental, but rather being resilient in the face of adversity? In terms of mindset is, what are my values? What do I believe in? Because again, the mind is a powerful tool and it can sabotage us. You know, we speak about in positive intelligence around 9 different saboteurs. The avoider is, am I just going to avoid the situation and just make like it's, ostriches? Do I going to go with the hyper rational and let me just go with the facts and figures? But EQ's told us is, unless you take the facts and figures and combine it with the emotional data, we can't make truly expansive decision making. Over emotion is going to get you somewhere else wrong too, but over rational has got the same kind of counter effect. In terms of
Yeah.
pleasing, are we always going to please someone and kind of going with the fear safe option? Also is not a great way to go.
That sounds amazing. So I'm getting some of the comments. I'm getting people from the US. We have Nunu Bukete. She says fear, false evidence appearing real, and I really want us to address that, because most we should address it in two cases. We have startups that always have to let go new employees and bring in better personals in terms of effectiveness. Startups have that free flow of employees. They recruit, they say let go. They recruit, they let go. Unlike established brands who have a very established structure, and then you could be able to, if you have a challenge, you get to compliance, then compliance now will be able to handle this and all the like. Now, let's do startups, which is what is very common within the African context. And we have a lot of African startups that are recruiting today and letting go. So, Colleen, if you want to give an advice to most startups in terms of emotional intelligence and false evidence, because in startups anyone could just walk up to the boss and say, I don't like Colleen, I want her to go, she did this. And even without evidence or proofs of what the person is saying, if they just have a gang of four, if they cohoot themselves together and come like four of them, it's so strong and evidence against you. In that startup, you're going home. It will need a lot for you not to last in such a startup. So, if I want to ask, what kind of systems do you think our startups are lacking when it comes to emotional intelligence in terms of handling employees and firing employees?
Actually, I think that what a lot of startups or organizations lack is that they do not have a process for filtering what is fact and what is just feelings and internal politics. And that is very important, because if I come forward and say Chantal is like this, then the superior that I'm coming to needs to listen for facts, and facts that can be interrogated and confirmed, without just listening to my bad chemistry that I may have with a colleague for whatever reason. Job setups are areas of conflict. Conflict sometimes of views, not so much that I have a specific view about how something should be done, and my colleague has a view of how a different view. That is an area of conflict, and you need maturity as a superior to be able to interrogate those areas of conflict and say what makes sense. What are the pros and cons of this view as opposed to the pros and cons of this other view, and make an informed decision. Just listening to the fact that there are 5 people who think this way against this person, and not looking at what about that other person's view about the situation. You have to have a balanced view, and try and take out negative anxiety causing things that may not be in the best interest of the organization, and that may not foster the organization's ability to move forward and implement and deliver its own mandate.
Wow. So from one thing I'm getting very clear from both ladies in the house is emotional intelligence is needed to handle every case that has to do with firing in the workplace. We have perspective, which is something that is not taken a lot into consideration before firing people. Perspective in terms of why is this person's view like this? Why is this person behaving like this? Especially when it comes to startups, because with more organized organizations, you have a process. I have been privileged to work with sometimes UN organizations are one of the best platforms you could definitely get this process, because they have already programmed channels of distribution. Emails have already been pre-prepared. Everything is just you copy, you edit, and you send. Unlike when it comes to startups, big basic business organizations, sole proprietors, which are kind of different. So, Chantal, please help us. How do we build emotional intelligence so that we can speak up at the workplace when we are when we are about to get fired, or when we are fired? Why am I saying so? Because the last thing I want us to dwell on is the topic of the day, which is how to actually speak up. Because the steps to speaking up, we have to tell the audience on how to. Do you start like this? Do you go like this? So how do you build emotional intelligence not to flip when your boss says, go home, and you're like, what am I doing here? Get out. And you
I
get
think
that. Yeah. How do you do that?
I think my view is one to kind of take the one option off the table is getting fired is not the option. Getting fired up is what we want to aim for. And I think it comes down to number one is confidence. Number one is there's a beautiful thing between confidence and arrogance. Arrogance means that you think that you're better than someone else. And oftentimes when we're fighting or we're arguing, it's about right fighting. You're wrong and I'm right. But confidence is your job. It's to have faith in yourself, to have belief in yourself. And in order to be able to speak up, I think it requires a huge amount of courage, bravery, confidence. And sometimes, yes, you build it up with experience, but you can also develop that by doing your own inner work in terms of, again, like I said earlier, is knowing who you are, knowing what your values are, know what matters to you. The next part of that is in terms of identity, is who do I believe I am to be? Because we teach people how to treat us. And if you raise your standard in terms of what you're willing to accept, set boundaries in terms of here is what I will accept and what I won't accept, people work better with boundaries. And to speak our truth confidently, and like we said earlier, is respectfully. but own your voice and develop that.
Wow. So I'm reading the comments and I like what you've just said. So let me go to the comments and give you one which has caught my attention. So
Yeah.
Victor, Victor from I think Victor is from Kenya because I have met Victor. Victor is an amazing friend of mine from Kenya. So Victor says, in a risk-averse or hierarchical culture, what are the most effective strategies for water testing, for testing the waters? So, like for example, he wants to know, like, how do you do that?
I think there's um, I think it's the gentle art of influence. And my
Okay,
first thing is you're playing a tournament here, not one match. And you've got to go 2 or 3 or 4 rounds. And the first time, yes, you test the waters. And so that is about, I think, to what Colleen said earlier is do your homework, get your data, get your facts, do the research. Number two is do the planning. I mean, I've been doing, part of my job for more than 2 decades. Many times, if it's important, I still write down what I'm going to say, what my approach, my strategies are going to be, because the more prepared we are, the more your confidence can show up and shine with you. The next one is play the man or woman, meaning know your audience. Depending on what you want to bring to them, is there's a thing called WIFM. What's in it for me? What's in it for the person you're trying to talk? How do you want to influence them? Because just because you say or you ask what you want doesn't mean you're going to get what you want. One of the most
okay,
important things in terms of leadership coaching is getting buy-in from people, influencing them. So are they big picture? Are they detailed? Change the way that you communicate with them. Are they auditory? Are they visual? Right? If someone speaks me to death, I lose them. You show me pictures, I'll stay more engaged. Are there someone who's high paced versus fast paced? Know the person you're dealing with, because the more you speak their language, the more you'll have the magic rapport of communication, which is rapport. And then
wow,
formal and informal channels, right? Saying is, I'm thinking about this thing. How would you go about this? What's important to you? What's your outcome you want to have? Do the groundwork and then come round two with, hey, I want to kind of bring this forward. So plan, re-strategize, get background.
wow. Plan, re-strategize, and get the background. But okay, now let's leave the firing. Let's remove the firing from the equation because we've talked a lot about people losing their jobs. So let's talk about what are the reasons you think employers always want to let go of people. This I will send to Colleen. Colleen, why do you think an employer wants to let go an employee, whether being productive or not being productive? What do you think are the factors that play a great role in letting go?
I think a lot of times employers let people go for dishonesty,
Okay.
where somebody just goes out of their way to not portray the facts that are there in front and try to hide them. And oftentimes it's because somebody comes in and hides the truth because they believe the truth is going to get them in trouble. And hiding the
Yeah.
truth is the thing that is going to actually get you in trouble. You are more in trouble for hiding the truth than having admitted the truth and put it out there so that the organization can deal with the facts as they are, as opposed to dealing with the dishonesty before now dealing with the facts. That is the first thing.
Okay.
I am yet to see a situation where somebody gets let go for just that there's bad chemistry between employees. The other reason why people often are let go is failure to meet targets that
Okay.
have been clearly articulated, targets that the employee has been given all the resources, all the support that enable them to deliver, and they still fail to deliver. And they have
Yeah.
not even come forward to say, I am unable to deliver, maybe because I need training in this area, or I need this to facilitate me, where somebody didn't deliver and did not come forward to say, to explain why the targets are not achievable. So those are the two scenarios that I've seen as the main cause of people being let go.
Wow. I like the two scenarios, especially the second one, because most of the times in our communities, we do not agree to understanding that we are lacking in certain aspects. We could be maybe great at this, but they're also failing at the other aspect of this. And sometimes it's good enough to just walk up to your employer and say, I need training in this, I need training in that. I think I will need assistance in this. I think I want to do more research in that. And a lot of employees do not understand the value, the pressure of the deadlines are never on the employees. They are always on the senior executives because you strike a deal, you know that you have this deadline, but the employees do not really take that pressure like you. And sometimes, especially if you are maybe a founder or maybe a top executive running a firm that has to do with business like deadlines and all, like you realize you find it very difficult to get your employees to meet up with them on time, especially in the African context where we say the African quotes, there's a African proverb saying black man time. Now, a lot of people don't know this, especially the Westerners, until they come to some countries in Africa, they understand what black man time is. So, for the audience sake, black man time is basically the black man tells you we're starting at 7, and that means the event is starting at 9. 7 is you get ready in your homes, you bathe, and then you at 7 you start thinking, oh, will I drive straight? At 8, yes, arrival of guests. That's the early birds coming at 8. For an event that is timed at 7. And then at 9, you have 1 or 2 of the top execs moving in. And then you have 10:30. The bosses start coming in because they don't want to come when the entire place is not full. So you have them coming at 10:30. And we have that concept that has eaten so bad into our culture, some countries around the globe, where they say African time. So when we tell people 7 o'clock, they think it's 9 o'clock to 10 o'clock. when we tell, so that's why the African man always says prompt. They insist on the prompt because they know you have to be there on that time. Now, this is what my challenge has always been in the continent. You walk around and you get to work with different people, different cultures. The black man always has more amazing respect for elders. So if I'm working with Colleen, which is weird because me calling her name Colleen on the live, it's not a cultural thing for me. So I'm to call her Ma'am Colleen or Madame Colleen or Madame Chantal. And we are not very accustomed to calling people by their first names or by their names. And you get to work now where I remember working for a Canadian and she's called Julia. So Julia for 3 months kept on telling me, it is Julia. I'm like, yes, madam, Julia. and it and in such a working condition, because of cultural values, you find it very difficult that if I'm being oppressed by my job site by Chantal or maybe like Colleen, because of the age gap, I will not speak up. I will just grumble and curse them behind the scenes, but they cannot see me doing that. So, how do we break that cultural barrier, which is more of an ethical thing that we've grown to love in our communities in Africa? I know most Africans, you realize an African will greet you at the bow. So, now we love each other. And so, how do we break that cultural value? Because it takes a long while to be able to address people by their names and say, Colleen, Chantal, I don't like this about the company. I know this. I want to take this approach. I think you can handle me like this. It makes a lot of younger prospects in organizations not speak up. So, Chantal, you talked about creating an amazing environment for work where people could easily communicate. How is that balance going to work with this culture pressing down on most people within certain parts of the world?
I'm going to swing it around and I'm going to speak to you about I am talent.
Okay.
If I define myself as I am talent, it means that I take a very proactive approach to how I manage my career. What that means,
Okay.
when I start a new job, I will not wait for my boss for 3 weeks before I have a first engagement with them. If they don't come to me, I will prompt it, respectfully saying is, I would love to have a meeting with you. Again, kind, gentle, and the gentle art of influence. And I would have those conversations saying is, tell me how you want to work. Tell me how, or let me tell you what's important to me. We oftentimes forget to have pre-set up conversations. And it's beyond culture. It's about saying is, this is who I am. Here's what I want to bring to the table. What do you want to see with me after 3, 6, and 12 months? If I'm not meeting standard, would you be open with me to tell me that? How do you want to be addressed? Are you comfortable with me messaging you after 5 o'clock in the evening? Or is that your family time? We forget to ask people is, what is your preference? How do I want to be dealt with? Here's my boundaries. Here's what I want to do. Here's who I am. And the same thing for our leaders. Because as talent, your job is not to complain and blame and accuse. It's a saying is, how do I show up every day? How do I showcase my talent every day? How do I turn a scenario from something bad into an opportunity for me to learn to grow? It's having a growth mindset around my career and a progressive mindset.
Wow. It's having a growth mindset around your career and a progressive mindset.
Let me just chip. Okay. Let me just chip on what Chantal said. I worked for an organization. It was a state-owned enterprise in my younger years. And we had this amazing gentleman, an elderly gentleman who was the CEO. That man made everybody feel like they are his age mates. He walked around the organization, talked to anybody, talked to the drivers, the cleaners, and the culture of this organization was so amazing. Everybody was called by their initials. So I was CTD. Everybody called me CTD, the driver, the cleaner, the CEO. The CEO, everybody called him Mom, MOM, because those were his initials. And that was the culture. It made you feel a part of these people, and you did not have to revere them because they are the CEO. And it made you feel comfortable coming to him or to one of your colleagues or your supervisor to say, I need help with this one. I am struggling to achieve this one. And I think the CEO has to set the tone, the culture, so that everybody feels welcome. Everybody feels they are an important part of the organization and they can contribute, such that even the one who gets in trouble, they know they are in trouble because of their deeds, not because they are being victimized or anything.
Yeah, I love that.
Sorry, the 5 is a cohesive team. To have a cohesive team, the first level of that is trust. When you've got trust, you can have, the second word is conflict, but it's actually encouraging debate. Because if you bring one perspective, Colleen, and I bring another one, we might get to a more richer, different conclusion. It's not about right fighting or my view. It's what is best for the common goal, common outcome. Because you want to be able to have different opinions be heard in order to have richer solutions at the end of the day. Build trust, have conversation.
Build trust and have conversations. That's kind of amazing. Now to the topic. How then do you speak without being fired? How then do you speak when you're about being fired? Or how then do you speak when you're being fired? How do you go about it?
For me, Colleen.
Yeah, Colleen, you could go.
How do you speak when you are being fired? You need to look at what you are being accused of to start off with, and interrogate what you are being charged of to say, did I do it? What was my defense? Why did I do it? and be transparent in the manner you communicate about the issue, and communicate about the issue directly. It builds confidence in your interactions to address the matter at hand. You are not being to say, why am I being let go? And face the facts and not try to be defensive without
Why you're
looking at, yeah, you have to look at things from the perspective of the organization and from your own perspective and say, where do these two meet, or where do they differ so much that they are parallel and we can't move forward together?
Chantal, anything to add?
I think one thing is in neurolinguistics, we speak about choosing your language very strongly. And they say that what power is in the tongue and what we speak. And if your outcome is to avoid being fired, all your subconscious mind is saying is, I'm going to get fired. How do I avoid that? And you're going to get a self-fulfilling prophecy. But saying is, if I've got the mindset to saying is, I want to get promoted, I want to move forward, I want to progress, I want to contribute. If my intention I'm coming to with my conversations, my clearing conversation is, I want to be seen as a talent in my organization, not the one who creates an uprising. If I want to be seen as potential future leaders, as I want to be seen as a team player, is you got to kind of think about the approach, because whatever your end goal and your approach is, the way you approach will be very different.
Wow. Okay, then let's change the narrative. I think we've talked about the employees' feelings, we've talked about emotional intelligence. Let's talk now from the employer. How then do you fire people properly? Is there an appropriate way of firing people? Because I'm looking at it, I'm listening to you, and I'm like, I'm seeing a lot of ways to evade me being fired, even though I don't know if that's gonna happen. Because if my boss tells me you're fired, and I take 2 steps and I come back and I say, please, can I volunteer for 2 months? I would love to just give you a different input, and then you channel me the reasons why I'm being fired. Let me see if I can improve them. 2 months pro bono. If I can't, then I'm fired. That's a different way of thinking about it. That's a different way of running about it. But I want to think now like the employer. Is there a nice way of telling somebody you're fired? I would really love you guys to paint the right perspective. There's steps towards being a sweet and loving employer who wants to just fire a couple of people who have not been productive for the past 3 months. Yeah, I see the way Colleen is laughing, so I think she should start.
I believe there is a proper way of letting people go. The proper
do they do
way.
Zoom calls and just fired?
Huh?
Can you just do a Zoom call? No, I can get you. I'm saying, do you just do a Zoom call, put a couple of flowers and say, hello, Chantal, you've been so nice to the organization, you're fired?
No, I was going to say there's a proper way of letting people go.
All right.
First of all, it's following due process of the organization, because the organization must have documented process of what needs to happen. Secondly, you have to let the employee know that they have done something or they have not been doing something and they risk disciplinary action or something like that.
Okay.
You need to give the employee an opportunity to respond to the charges.
Charges, yeah.
Yes. They have to know, first of all, every employee must know what the rules are and the process that will be followed. Secondly, let the employee know which of the rules they have broken and be specific about what they did that is wrong. So that it is clear, you can connect the actions of the employee or the lack of action of the employee to the procedure that they have broken.
That's true.
You have shown that you've given the employee a fair and equitable chance of explaining themselves, of showing cause why disciplinary action should not be taken against them, of defending themselves, their actions or their lack of actions thereof, putting them through a properly constituted disciplinary hearing where they can bring their own justifications, their own witnesses, and the organization brings their charges, their justifications, and their own witnesses in front of a fair panel. A fair panel, you can even invite somebody who is not in the organization to come and listen so that it is much more fairer and the employee has been given an opportunity to defend themselves. And if it is something that can really not be defended or explained, then you are able to tell the employee, we've taken you through this process, you have failed this, we have failed that, and we are now taking the decision that we are letting you go. And in the letter to say we are letting you go, you have to show the employee that this is your process for appealing this decision. And also, by letting you go, you are entitled to this, and this is what we are giving you.
Wow, that's
Thank you.
nice. Chantal, anything to add?
Good rights. People have rights, and they need to know what their employee rights are effectively.
So we're going to take questions now. I'll start with you, Chantal. How do you decide if it's worthy to speak up or stay quiet? This question was sent from Facebook.
Beautiful. I think the first thing is it's knowing your values first. Who am I? What matters to me? What am I willing to stand for, not stand for? That when something's happening is this just something which is it small that I can ignore it? Is it big because it infringes on my values? If it infringes your values, speak up. Number two is how many people does it affect? Is it just me? Is it many? Is it the whole organization? Because culture, I think Colleen spoke about a really beautiful culture before, is culture a beautiful example? If you took a fish pond or fish bowl and you dropped a dropper full of black ink in it, how far would the drop go? Well, science says it'll go into every single corner. It might be very little, but it'll infect every part of your culture. So if it's going to affect the company in a big way and it's meaningful and it matters and it's going to infringe on the company and many people, that might be another great reason to speak up. Number three is how important is this opportunity to your career? Because oftentimes some people is don't jump ship or move on or resign because other people are making it uncomfortable for you. Leave on your terms. In other words, saying is, how do I, if my intention is to stay at a company for 2.5 to 3 years to be able to get good tenure on my curriculum, vitae, your CV, is stick it out. Find ways to change it.
Yeah.
Make it work on your terms. If it's important for you, stand up for yourself and go the 3 rounds with people and find different ways to bring it across.
That's amazing. So it is important for you. I also ask you are in life in terms of your professional call. Like if you are in a stage where you think this organization is going to push you further and there are still values that align with your personal goals, I think you should stay and fight for it and try to get the board to understanding that they could get a better version of you in times to come, and that changes the entire narrative for you. So, but on a case where maybe the cultures don't align with you, you could let go. It depends on that. It always depends on where you want to go, what you want to achieve, the people you want to relate with. Are these people going to take you to your certain locations you set for yourself? So that's just it. Let's add another question. I'm getting another question which they say, how to fight social anxiety in the workspace? That's directed directly to Chantal, the way you clapped. I want you to start with that.
I've got a great answer on those, right? On like 5 different levels. So write this down. There are three S's you want to consider: state, story, and strategy. State
All right.
is your state of being. So if you
All
need
right.
to stand up for yourself in the workplace, number one is power dress. I changed at 5 o'clock this afternoon. I'm dressed in red. It's the color of power. That's why Donald Trump uses it all the time, right? High heels, lipstick, dress it. Power suit it up if you need to. Your physiology is the most powerful thing you can do in order to fake the confidence if you need to make it. The second thing is in terms of kind of, I'm going to call it the story, right? It's what we tell ourselves, right? Is confidence is a muscle you got to actually practice. And in terms of that is sometimes think about different strategies in terms of energize or like the first one is empathize, right? Is connect with other people. If you want to get someone to listen to you and really kind of is get them to connect, is rapport building, connect with people. The second thing is innovate. We oftentimes we're so hung up on our version of something is what about an alternative way? Options is power. Being able to start, sometimes to act, because sometimes we wait for the moment and the moment passes. Sometimes is be bold and take the step. And then the last thing, the strategy, like I said, is play the man, learn the history behind someone, figure out their motivations. Those are a couple of things I would say in terms of act is, well, fake it while you make it.
That's nice. Colleen, anything to add? I saw you smiling while she was talking.
No, I completely agree with what Chantal just said, that you need to strategize in terms of how you are going to speak. Be prepared, have your facts, and build the confidence to speak up.
Yeah.
Build the confidence to speak up, have your facts, and back up your facts with your value system. If it speaks to it challenges your value system and the way you have to speak up and be ready to be challenged and be ready to speak to defend yourself with facts and confidently without getting emotional.
I just want to
I
add
like
something to
what
that. Two quick things is one, power posing. There is huge data in terms of power posing. If you stand for 2 and 3 minutes in the Superman or Superwoman kind of pose, you change the biochemistry of the body. That's one way to bring down anxiety. A second thing is if you're in a meeting, literally is imagine sitting on a chair, and literally you can go as far as imagine just literally become body aware, wiggle your toes, become aware of your legs, kind of check your breathing. One of the most powerful thing is I call it the 9 breaths. So 2 breaths in, hold 2 breaths, 4 breaths out, and then pause for a second. So 2, 2, 4, and 1. By changing the out breath to extending it versus the in breath, you actually move into your parasympathetic nervous system and you'll actually drop the anxiety in the nerves in the body. A last technique is you can kind of get in a meeting where no one's going to notice. You look forward and you look up and you look at the peripheral vision. And while looking at the dot for literally a couple of seconds, by doing that, you'll literally calm down the whole body. There is huge amount of techniques just in terms of quick techniques, ground the body, use kind of finger body awareness, change your breathing, powerful things to drop the anxiety.
Wow. So there was a question from Linda, but now we have another question: how to fight social anxiety in the workplace? That was what we just answered. We have another question which is coming from Linda. So let me get down to Linda. She said she gave a quiet question that I really want us to address. She said, let me check again. So Linda was asking, good. How do you raise your concerns without sounding negative? So how do you raise your concerns without sounding negative in the workspace? I would go back to you, Colin, because you just ended something, and that was the next question Linda Monala raised.
When you have a concern in the workplace, you have to have reasons that support your concern. It can't just be, I think Chantal is doing something wrong, without saying, why do you think so? Because if you just if it's just hypothetical, it sounds like a thumbs up. It sounds like
Yeah,
you are speculating. But you have to find something that justifies or supports your concern. Even
that's
if you
true.
don't have the full evidence of the concern, but bring something forth that can allow leadership or management to say, this makes sense. Yes, this is sounds like it's something to look into further so that maybe it's just a concern that should not be taken further, but there has to be something that confirms or supports why you are concerned so that management can look further into that concern, justify it, find out if it makes sense and if they need to take action to correct that concern.
That's amazing. That's so nice. Why I think this topic came up because at Transformation Leaders right now we have a course that is available for people to, which is the art of communication or of connecting, sorry. And there you'll be able to communicate properly because if you go through that course, you by the time you're done with it, you'll be able to get a proper method of communication. And that's why this topic was brought for us to really just have a conversation about it. And I would just tell the viewers just get down there, get to the website and check out the course, and you'll be able to go through this. So, Shanta, in conclusion, what would you love to tell our audience about this amazing topic we've been brainstorming on it before we take the last question?
So just repeat your question.
So, I said before we take the last question, what would you love to tell our audience about this topic which we have been dwelling on for the past 40 minutes plus?
I think number one is that you matter. You are important. You matter. Don't settle for second best. Raise your standard and your identity of who you are and what you believe you're worthy of. And lastly, is be willing to go 3 rounds because oftentimes we either too scared to ask or we kind of ask halfway or we don't ask fully or once we get shut down, once we kind of walk away. Is try different approaches in order to, if it's important to you, persist, get the buy-in.
Yeah. All right, that's nice. But at the end of the day, we just have to we have to understand that getting fired is not the end of the world, it's not the end of your career. It could even be the beginning of something new, depending on how positive minded you are, because every situation could be turned around, depending on how you want to focus it. I have this code I put almost every week on my status. I say your mindset is everything, because your mindset really shapes how you take the feedback, data, how you process situations, whether positive or negative. And a lot of people don't understand how much that plays on their day-to-day activities, the mindset in which they walk into situations with, and how they exit. So back to you. What would you love to tell the audience about this amazing conversation we just had? And what's your concluding statement, Carol?
Me.
Yeah, you.
What's my concluding statement? I think my concluding statement would be stay true to yourself.
Okay.
Don't compromise your value system because that is how you govern yourself. That is how you govern your career. And always look at what makes you comfortable. If it doesn't make you comfortable, it will not assist you to achieve your career goals. Therefore, stay true to yourself and make sure that you are able to govern yourself and govern your career path without compromising your value system.
Without compromising your value system. At the end of it all, we just have to agree to one thing. The mindset is going to change everything, how you perceive situations like this, your ability to learn with programs like what is being pinned on the screen, where you are able to go through courses that have to do with anxiety, go through courses that have to do with you're increasing your mental capacity, go through courses that have to do with emotional intelligence, get to learn techniques that have to do with calming you down? Uh, some I don't know much. A lot of people will recommend a lot of stuff from yoga to just posing to a lot of stuff that changes the whole narrative for you. But at the end of the day, we have to just do this. So thank you very much for having us together today. I was joined today live with Chantal, who has been amazing. And I would love to say, I would love to drop by saying something nice about everyone. For example, when we started, I was really worried because I was looking up to Chantal like, she's the girl, she's ready. She was very ready, very ready. While Colleen was more like, I'm calm, I'm gonna handle this. And they gave us great insights, and I must say thank you guys very much. It has been amazing having you guys on the live podcast. Hope to see you guys again. Bye.
Bye.